Hey everybody, welcome to the Colorado Early Intervention Telehealth update. So I am here with, with Becki Cohill, occupational therapist. Welcome, Becki.
Thank you.
And we were both on the work group back in 2015, 2016 when telehealth was fully endorsed by the state of Colorado. So both of us compiled, among other people, the training that you watch to become certified to do telehealth in the state of Colorado for early intervention. So excited to have Becki on here with me today. First, I just wanted to give a disclaimer that all of the information that we provide to you today is what we know today to be most accurate. Things change all of the time, and just keep checking back with the Facebook group or directly with Medicaid, directly with Early Intervention Colorado, who will be providing updates as we get them. Anything else you want to say about that, Becki?
No, I just agree. I think this time right now, being under this critical time, things are a little more fluid and a little more changing quickly. I know telehealth is in the news. It's everywhere. I've seen all over the media. So I think we're going to see that some policies are going to change really quickly. So just be aware and be watching.
Absolutely. And everything that you do, go ahead and keep really good documentation, all the conversations that you have with your families, with the service coordinators. This is a really imperative time for us to have the open communication and to make sure that we're documenting effectively what we're doing, which is what we should always be doing. But just like hand washing, let's make sure we make it happen for sure right now. So we're going to cover a couple of topics today. Most notably, we'll be talking about how to set up a telehealth visit and how you can communicate with your families why we're doing this. Secondly, we'll go over what you need to have a visit go smoothly. We'll troubleshoot some things, and then we'll talk about platforms, and finally some billing. We did have some questions posted to the Facebook group today, so we'll go over those at the end. So Becki, why don't you go ahead and get started with what you wanted to share regarding setting up a visit and talking with the family.
Great. So as you know, in EI, we use the coaching model, and we are really interested in natural environments and routines-based intervention. So what a perfect opportunity using telehealth. So I've been using telehealth on my own for about 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. One of the things I do when I get a new referral from a community center board is I make a phone call to the parents. I make sure that I have an email from the service coordinator and then a phone number, and I call the parents right away. And so I call the parents, let them know we'll be using telehealth and that I'll be sending them an email with information about what our sessions will look like and how to connect to the service. One of the things I did prior to, this is kind of a side note that you might find helpful during these times, is I practiced. I practiced using Zoom. I practiced using different video conferencing platforms with my friends, with my family, with my children, so that I got used to being comfortable on the screen. That takes a little bit of time on the therapist side. And Christine, I think you made a really good point in your video that you posted about how the more comfortable you are and the more calm you are, that and the more positive you are about using telehealth as a service delivery model, the better off the families are going to feel. So I think it's really important that we portray that and our confidence with the model. Remember that telehealth is not a separate service. It is OT, it is PT, it is speech, it is DI. It is whatever it was before. It's just delivered in a different manner, okay? So I've connected with the family. Now it's time to send the email. So depending on the platform that I'm using, I currently use Zoom. I send the family an email prior to the session. And in that email, I also include things that we might work on or things that they might want to have handy. close by. They may want to have a blanket. They may want to have their child in a high chair if I'm doing a feeding session. And can you have crunchy foods, maybe soft, mushy foods, maybe something the child can lick. Whatever they have in their home is fine, just like in person, right? I do find that for some kiddos, depending on the goals and what we're working on, that high chair sometimes is really nice. But remember, this is a coaching model. So we are coaching the family through those routines, okay? So make sure you keep your phone handy, especially for that first session. But I do find that sometimes I need the phone other times. And if there is a disconnect, if there is trouble on the family's end with connecting, I can troubleshoot with them using my phone. So that's really an important thing. One thing I have found is if they're not hearing me, there is no sound, I can't see them, click out and rejoin the meeting. Seems to work a lot of times. So I'll do that a lot. I'll say, just click out, let's start over. And that seems to help. Another thing that I feel is important, and this is for quality purposes, remember that the family you're working with on the other end is trying to absorb a lot of information, plus playing with their child and the environment. So I tend to take notes for the family while we're talking. So I will have a pad of paper right here handy, and I will just jot down notes, strategies that I suggested, so that that parent doesn't feel like, oh my goodness, I've got to remember this. She told me this. What are we doing? So I really try hard to keep pretty good notes. And then I think what has created the best outcomes for the families I've been working with is I send them a summary at the end. So similar to a note, it's in addition to my note. I don't usually send my EMR to them, but I do send this little session summary, which says, feeding, I really liked how you blah, or anything you can say that's a strength. And then I follow it up with, remember, these are a few strategies we talked about during our session. Okay, that's, sorry, that's my personal preference. And I have found I'm really starting to think that that is a really key piece to positive outcomes using telehealth.
I would agree. That's a really good point that you bring up, Becki. And actually, if you are documenting electronically or even on paper, that can go right into your note as patient education. So you're not having to duplicate your things. I think that's a really good, if you are typing that out, copy and paste it directly into your notes or an email. Now you've got a record of what you told them. You can even reference that the next time that you prepare for the session. So you've already are kind of doing a lot of your work for yourself. And that's really a smart idea. I like that a lot, Becki.
Yeah, and the EMR system I was using in the past was not compatible with what I do with my session summary, but you're right. Cutting and pasting from my session summary right into my note, piece of cake.
Great.
And so I send that back to the email. I also follow up. Remember, we have a session the next week at such and such time. I look forward to seeing you. And so using that coaching model and starting off our sessions, I've seen a lot of questions and comments on the Facebook boards. I'm on a few boards right now about, well, how do you do more than 20 minutes? How do you do more than 30 minutes? And I would say to you that if you're using the coaching model, which for EI kiddos is best practice, that you should be able to do your typical session, because you start off a recap. What are we doing? How's your week been? Is there anything new we should talk about? And then you progress into your strategies and what the routine that you're working with the family on, and then a follow-up with a recap. So if you think about it, all of that time, I think it's fairly easy to go ahead and make it past that 45-minute mark. I typically do an hour with my families. And for the most time, I hit that hour. There are times when the kiddo's sick or something like that. We don't hit that. But for the most part, I'm on session for an hour with the family.
Right.
So I think it's a change of thinking of working with the child one-on-one all the time, hands-on, to coaching that family to provide the strategies throughout their day.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, so often in the home, we just pick up the child and do what we want. And so we may not be very well versed at communicating to the parent what we want the parent to do right now. And so in telehealth, we don't have that option just to pick the child up and bounce them on our knee or do whatever we normally do. And so we really do have to use a lot more strategies to communicate and to draw out of the parent the information, because we can't just physically make it happen ourselves. But that doesn't mean that it's bad.
Mm-mm. No, and what I found, I would say, and then I'll let Christine talk a little bit because I feel like I've been talking a lot. But one of the things that I have found is that it empowers families to be able to generalize the information that we've talked about into other routines of the day and other areas. So I was working with a child on Thursday, and I've been working with this child for quite a while. And mom was so excited. His mom was so excited to show me some things that she came up with that she knew we really wanted to work on getting some weight on his arms for that crawling and things like that. And so she showed me some new techniques that she tried, knowing what we had talked about in the past. So those were her ideas. Those were her ways of working with her child in her environment, and what felt good to her body. And it was great. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what we're trying to do. So she's doing those things throughout her day, not just in that 1 hour session when we're talking. So the other thing, the other little plug I'm going to put in is we've been trying to collect data on telehealth for a while, and we actually are in the process of trying to get some grants going. But please feel free to collect information during this time about outcomes or things that you've noticed or things that parents have said, to promote telehealth, because there's limited research, and this is something we're trying to build up.
Absolutely. Yes, I think it's a unfortunate the circumstances around why there's a push for telehealth now. But Becki and I both know for years the value of this, and I am excited to have the opportunity to share with all of you just how impactful this is. Becki is correct when it's such a great feeling to know that the families are really getting it. I remember the first time I worked with a family in the school system. They were in Buena Vista and I was in Denver, and the little boy was 7 with a in utero stroke. Only comes to children's, every 6 months to a year for his stroke clinic. And the mom said something to me, no one has ever told me that before about my son, whatever we were working on. And I couldn't believe that he's never had a pediatric physical therapist work with him ongoing. Well, they don't have access to that. And so here I am doing a telehealth visit, and he's 7, and the mom saying, no one's ever shared that piece of information with me, that I could be doing that with him. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this has such a great value to so many people, even though not even people who are rural. But so anyway, so that really that's so exciting to know that you really are impacting not only the child, but impacting and empowering the parent and the family. So anyway. Yeah, Becki, you're not talking too much. You can continue.
That's okay. I think one of the best things is now for us to talk kind of about the nuts and bolts and the whole, like, what happens before you get to the home, get to the telehealth session. So I think you were going to talk about like platforms and billing and some of those really fun parts of our jobs.
Absolutely. So if you just do a quick Google search for telemedicine, you're going to see a whole lot of companies out there. And I think that can seem very overwhelming. Right now, a lot of companies are offering free trials that maybe they weren't in the past. So even if you're looking at just a way to get started for the next couple of weeks, you can definitely look for telemedicine free or HIPAA compliant free. That's important that we are meeting the standard of HIPAA compliance. The information that we're sharing is we're person to person in the sense that I am working directly with Becki. I am not going through a third party, like through a hospital that is distributing this. But still, we do want to make sure that we can have safeguards in place, that nobody else really can access this space. So do your due diligence as you're researching different platforms, whether you're calling up the representative directly and asking them, what level of encryption you're providing, or what level of security do I have here. Even Zoom, Zoom has the option to add an additional password. Zoom has the option to make sure that you're allowing them into the room so people can't come into the room without you. So those are things that can help you ensure that the person in the room is the person who you're expecting to be, and no one's like hiding. So check those things out. But some names of companies that I just did that quick Google search for: Chiron Health will offer 14 days free. VC has a free version. That's V as the letter and then C with your eyes. Their free version is always free. You're just limited to 25 visits per month. There's one that's called Telehealth. I'll say that sounds really cool if you have some coding skills, because everything is open source, but you've got to figure out how to put it together. So good luck, but it's free. DocSeeMe, DOXY.me. It's free and it's HIPAA compliant. ClockTree gives you 90 days free. So again, now some of the questions of, why would I choose one over the other? Document share, if that's important to you. Like, I can share a document right now with you using the Zoom platform, and that's nice. I can have my family annotate, take a screenshot of that, and then my admission documents are signed. In DocSeeMe, the free version, that's not available to you. Recording. Is recording essential? No, there is a telehealth consent form for recording, and there are certain CCBs that are wanting the signature on that, even if you're not recording. So do understand that the state of Colorado has their guidelines that they have put out, and then each individual CCB, as they always do, has to meet that, but they can always ask for more. So certain CCBs are asking for that telehealth recording consent form, even if you are not recording. And so your family can say yay or nay. You may not have that capability, or even want to have that capability. If you do record, it cannot be stored on your personal device for more than 24 hours, 48 hours, Becki?
Yeah, just like a note. Yeah.
That's right. It needs to get uploaded into a secure cloud space within that time that is encrypted and password protected, and definitely compliant with the HIPAA and FERPA, all of those things. So you're getting into a lot more security issues when we start recording. But there are advantages to the recording. I just think at this moment in time, probably not something we want to be really messing with. Let's just get these visits performed. When we take a look at, is the child, are we going to be meeting their minutes? Are we going to be meeting their monthly visits or not? Let's just get it done. And so, I'm not using DocSeeMe, but I think that there's a lot of advantages of being on their free platform. And So anything else you'd like to say, Becki, about platforms?
I do know a couple of therapists, OTs, who do use DocSeeMe and they're happy with it.
Mhm.
Um, I personally use Zoom. I like the share feature because I'll find YouTube videos, signing videos, I'll find equipment that maybe I might recommend for a family, or different ideas. So I do use it sometimes, but it's not every session or all the time. It's just different ideas you can have to share
Yes,
with
I
different
agree
groups.
100%. It's really nice for me. It helps increase that interaction with my client, whether it's the parent or the child themselves. I can bring up a picture of a kid doing exercise or a cartoon, or if I have an older kid, we could be playing a game that way. So I mean, it's nice. It's not essential. Um, yes. Now, as far as the billing piece goes, Medicaid, the state of Colorado for Medicaid does allow for telemedicine, and that's the word that Colorado Medicaid or Health First uses in their provider information. So you're looking up information that it says telemedicine providers. It's going to specify on the page, if you were to look it up online right now, that speech therapists are the only approved provider to provide telemedicine services for Medicaid. Then there's a disclaimer right below that that says if you are not an approved provider, you can still provide telemedicine services, but you may not bill for a modifier.
Yes.
So in the grand scheme of things, what does that mean? That as long as your license allows for you to use telemedicine, which PTOT speech does, and if there's no license for anybody else, DI, visual therapy, all of that we can, but we cannot bill the state Medicaid the extra modifier if you're not a speech therapist.
Great.
Yes, so that's just some semantics. The word telehealth in the eyes of Medicaid means remote patient monitoring. Telehealth in the eyes of Health First Colorado is not what we're doing. And that's a very important distinction, and how you use that and what you bill for it. Just understand that telehealth in the eyes of Medicaid is not telemedicine, is not what we're doing, and we should not be using codes for telehealth through Health First Colorado. So
A little confusing on that, but just remember, when you're looking up information, Colorado is very progressive. We're a very progressive state, and some of these things Christine and I went through 4 or 5 years ago to make sure that this is a viable service delivery option for families, and it is in the state of Colorado. Medicare has yet at this point to go ahead and reimburse for telehealth, telemedicine, but it's coming, and it's coming fast because of the outbreak.
right.
So
Yeah, so keep a lookout for those and for how you're billing it. Of course, depending on how you're billing, are you billing CPT codes, or are you working through a home health company? That isn't going to change. You're still going to bill your same CPT codes that you would otherwise, or if you're a home health, you're billing those basic codes. That's no different. And again, I'll say this is a service delivery method, really. That's how this is a service delivery method. That's all that it is. It is not a separate service. So, yes.
can I
Okay.
add to that real quick on the home health? One
Yeah.
thing you may need to look into closer is your accrediting body. If you are rehab accredited, you will have that additional step versus those of you who are not in doing home health, if you don't have a rehab accreditation attached to your company, then you're clear from Medicaid's perspective, but you need to check with that rehab accrediting body to make sure that telehealth is also covered with them.
Very true. Like if it's ACHC, like they don't have language really to stipulate that I'm aware of. The only language that I know for ACHC specifies for supervisory visits. The last time I looked at that language, it said that the supervising therapist must cross the threshold of the patient's home to complete the supervisory visit. So that's the only language I know in ACHC that talks about that would really make you have to go into the person's home, would be for that supervisory visit. So anyway, but yeah, check with that particular accrediting agency if that affects you. Okay, so that's billing. There is a Medicaid billing manual that I'll have a link to in the description. And again, I'll just say document everything well. And I would recommend saying that you're providing the services this way due to this public health threat. I would just document that, because then it's very clear as to why you are choosing to do this at this time, and that the parent is in agreement with this plan, which of course you've already gotten those consents, and those need to be recorded as well and sent back to the service coordinator. They did make a change that as far as I am understanding, that it doesn't need to be added to the IFSP prior to you performing this, but do communicate with your service coordinator. Absolutely, you need to have a good faith effort that you have completed the telehealth training. As far as I know that everything is now up and running on that telehealth training on the Cornerstone website. So please do take the time to watch the training that Becki and I have put out, and other people were part of that as well. So okie dokie, let's see what else we wanted to talk about today, Becki. I would like to just go over some strategies of problem solving. I had a couple of questions that people asked. So one of them was tips to meet that 46 to 60 minute mark. And I agree with you, a lot of coaching. What else would you say to help therapists meet that threshold?
I think understanding that this is not a hands-on service. So if you're thinking that, if you're a speech therapist and you're thinking you have to have eye contact for a 0 to 3-year-old kiddo for an hour, that's not going to happen. But what's going to happen is you're going to watch the mom of the child, or the dad, or the grandparent, whoever is working with the kiddo. You're going to have suggestions based on what they're working on. So if they're playing with the farm set that you know is in their home because you've been in their home, you've seen that before, and you're working on sounds and you're pointing to your mouth, moo, I hear the cow say moo, moo. You're going to do that same thing on the telehealth, right? I have at my disposal cups, I have bubbles, I have balls,
Mm-hmm.
I have a baby here that I use for positioning, where I talk to the families about, here's my dog, can you put his arms forward a little bit when you're feeding him so that he can play with that food and get it in his mouth and get messy and things like that.
Absolutely.
So all of that can happen via telehealth.
Right. And
And
I'll
then
go on.
talking about it, how did that go? What did you think? What did that feel like for you?
Mm-hmm.
What did you feel him move? And I'll have parents go, oh my gosh, I did it. It's like, yeah, that's the point.
Right.
Like, trying to pull the stand at their little toy, and mom puts her hands on his little booty, and next thing you know, he's standing up. And it's like, oh, I did it.
Yep.
So that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Building on those teacher moments.
That's great. And I think, like you said, like, I don't care if the kid's running around the room, let the kid run. I'm going to give the instruction to the parent, And, Becki, the next time you have your child come back over to you, what I want you to do is put one hand up on his hip and the other hand on the opposite shoulder. And we're going to help him come to stand that way. So let's try that right now, and then we'll talk about how it went. So you go and you do that. And just kind of provide that feedback. Just like you said, I like to set up my room. I call it a stage. And so I already will have a yoga mat, or I'll have a blanket on the floor, and I'll, tell my parent to do the same. Set up the camera so that I can see that entire yoga mat, so that when I come over there with my child, I know that, and my parent will know that wherever they are on that yoga mat or blanket, that you and the camera can see me. Even if I'm not facing you, if I'm working with my child here, I know that my therapist is going to be able to see me as long as I stay onto this mat. So that is really a good strategy for the parent to know that I don't have to keep wondering, oh, can you see me? Can you see me? If I stay on this area, we'll be able to see you. So that's just something that I use to help keep the parent kind of focusing on their child and not worried about whether or not I'm able to see what they're doing. Apart from that, I think asking about how the week went, and show me how you're playing with your child. I just want to watch you guys play in general, and things are going to naturally come up. Like, it's great that they can do one-to-one. I ask a question and the child responds back to me, but what do they do in more of a spontaneous play? How is this going in their normal routine of the day, not just when the therapist is having this one-to-one trial-based activity? So that's another thing too. Like, just let me just watch you guys play for a few minutes.
I use books. I sometimes use music.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull up Baby Shark really quickly. I had working with a kiddo who was really having a hard day,
Yeah.
and we were talking about with mom. I was talking with mom about distraction and how can we stop this before it starts. And I played Baby Shark, and man, we stopped that quickly. And so it was an aha moment for mom that instead of continuing down that path, let's try something different. So get creative, try some different things. I think it'd be really exciting if we had like a library of tips and tricks that happen during telehealth sessions that we've been able to problem solve through. I think that would be great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, pulling up a YouTube video is a super idea. And this takes a little more planning on the front end, but I've taken pictures of an entire book, and then I screen share that with the family. And so we can read the book. The cool thing about that is, as a speech therapist, which I'm not, I can give emphasis to different words, and the parents can see right there on the screen what I'm doing, and the child can listen to it and respond, and then I can have the parent go ahead and read the next page. Just, so we're modeling together, and really working together as that team, even though we are using this technology. So there are so many things that we can do that maybe you haven't even thought of. And I'll tell you, Becki, and I bet you probably know this too, the things that you think about online to do, you can then take into your in-home sessions. Things that you
Yes.
wouldn't have even expected to do work great in home too. It goes the opposite way.
Yeah, I have found that I'm a better coach, and I am much better in my in-person face-to-face sessions than I used to be by doing telehealth. So it's a nice starting point for the coaching. It forces us to coach. It really does. And that's the highest level of learning, is being able to teach. So if you think about how you learn, once you learn something, if you can teach it to somebody, that's the highest level of understanding and knowing the information. So I think to put a positive spin on everything that's going on, this is going to make us better teachers. It's going to make us better able to embrace the information that we have to share with families.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. there was another question on the Facebook group, specifically around devices. Like, what happens if my family doesn't have a device? Well, one, most of these platforms can be done on your smartphone. I wouldn't recommend that as a therapist, just because I want to see in the largest capacity what's going on. But from a family's perspective, they should be able to use the smartphone for sure. If they don't have access to that, or they have limited data, I mean, there are definitely going to be some families that this doesn't work for, unfortunately. But those should be few, minimal, because even without an internet connection, a lot of this can be done off of a data plan, if you're using unlimited data. I think, unfortunately, at this time, if somebody didn't have a device, my next solution would have been to send them to the library into like a closed room. But in this today, the libraries are closed. So I don't have that option to give people. But if the parent felt comfortable going to a public space, even though I can't be on a public internet connection, providing this, if the family chose that for themselves, that's their choice. But I don't think that really is going to fly right now.
No. And I provide early intervention services in American Samoa. So fairly remote. We use the service providers and the infant educators use MiFi. So they use data, and I've been doing it that way for about 3 years now in American Samoa. So most areas have connectivity, have good enough connectivity, but there are some where the phone doesn't work and there's no internet, and in those cases we have a challenge.
Correct. Or if the child's moving around a lot, the bandwidth requirements increase. So just understand that you may not be able to see 100% the quality of the movement, but asking the parent what that looked like, having the child do it again. So, I understand that there may be a little bit of a delay. I think we can work around those things. Again, you most likely, you have seen the child in the home already, so you do know how they move to a certain degree. But asking them to try it again or move the camera if needed. There's no rush here. We're not in a rush. If the family does have multiple siblings, it would be ideal if another adult was watching those other siblings, because just as a parent, that's stressful when you're trying to manage the camera, the child, and other siblings. At the same time, if that's not possible, as a therapist, what would you do in home? You would invite the other siblings to participate. Maybe give the other siblings a job. Why are they bothering you? Because they want to feel important too. So go and give the other siblings a job to go get you a toy or something like that. And those older siblings are absolutely going to want to engage with you on that screen. Right. So take advantage of that. Have that work in your favor. Anything else you wanted to add, Becki?
No, I think it's time to be creative. I just had this thought, which happens to me a lot, so you'll have to hang in there with me, wouldn't it be fun to do as this progresses into 2 weeks, do play dates with have your families hook up play dates and have play dates with their friends on the platform that you help them set up.
Yeah.
And so they don't feel isolate, this is the OT in me coming out, but so they don't feel so isolated and alone. I think in this time, it might be kind of a fun opportunity for families to meet together on Zoom or DocSeeMe or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great if all the families agree to come on, and it would just like, let's meet at the park, but instead of meeting at the park, you're meeting online, and you could lead an exercise or an activity if you wanted as the therapist, or it would be a great way to just bring people together. So we can use technology that seems like it's so distancing to actually help unite us. And that being said, I've created lots of good personal connections with kiddos, whether you're blowing kisses, giving high fives,
knuckles.
Absolutely. So don't be fooled that the family might say, "Oh, I don't know how you're going to interact with my child." I've I've never worked with a child in America Samoa, but I have definitely worked in Arizona and in California and in other states with me being here in Colorado. So it's definitely possible, and I think it's impactful how much we can change the lives of our families, especially in this time of uncertainty. You can be that beacon of consistency for them.
Yes.
And even just talking with the families, like how many times in person do we just sit and talk with mom, sit and talk with the dad just about their overall concerns. So as an early intervention provider, our roles are not limited to just your degree, right? You're there to support the whole child. So please do that. Please take advantage of our roles as early intervention providers. So I want to thank you for joining us today, and I hope that it was informative and hope kind of ease your mind in some of this uncertain times. But we will make it through this, and telehealth is a tool to help you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to hearing some success stories. I really am.
Yeah, likewise. So let us know. All right, take care, everybody.